My mother-in-law raised her champagne glass in my living room and told 40 guests how generous her son was for giving a poor girl, like me, this amazing life. Everyone stared at me with pity while I stood there holding appetizers. That's when I set down my tray, walked to my office, grabbed our house deed, and came back with receipts that made her face go white. Because after 5 years of being called a gold digger, it was time everyone learned whose name was actually on that deed. I need you to understand how deep Linda's hatred ran from the very first moment I met Marcus 7 years ago at the coffee shop where I worked my second job while finishing my master's degree in architecture. I wasn't some desperate girl looking for a meal ticket. I was grinding 70 hours a week between my internship at one of the most prestigious architectural firms in the state and evening shifts to pay for what my scholarship didn't cover. Marcus came in every Tuesday and Thursday, same order, same corner table, and after 3 months he finally asked me to dinner. He was kind, funny, and what I loved most was that he actually respected my ambitions and never made me feel like I needed rescuing. But his mother Linda, from the absolute first moment at a family brunch 6 months into our relationship, looked at me like something she'd stepped in with her $1,000 Louboutin heels. "So, you're a waitress," she said, not even a question, dripping with condescension. I corrected her politely, explaining I was an architectural intern and the coffee shop was supplemental income during my graduate degree. She literally waved her hand, like swatting a fly. "Yes, well, we all have to start somewhere, don't we?" Marcus has always had such a soft heart for people who are less fortunate. Less fortunate, like I was Charity instead of an accomplished woman with a full scholarship and 2 design competition wins. I wanted to tell her the less fortunate girl she was dismissing had more drive in her little finger than everyone at that country club table combined, but Marcus squeezed my hand hard and I swallowed it. The next 2 years were psychological warfare disguised as family bonding. Linda made it her mission to remind me I wasn't good enough. Every dinner became an opportunity to mention Marcus's ex Victoria, who came from what Linda called good breeding, meaning her father owned luxury car dealerships. She'd mention how Victoria never needed to work, how she understood their social circle, how she knew which fork to use. Never mind Marcus broke up with Victoria because she was boring and spent their relationship shopping with her mother's credit card. To Linda, Victoria represented everything I wasn't: old money, social connections, complete financial dependence on a man, which apparently was a virtue. When Marcus proposed after 3 years, I thought maybe things would change. They got worse. Linda threw an engagement party without consulting me, invited her country club friends and barely any of mine, and gave a speech about hoping I would rise to the occasion of being part of their family. Rise to the occasion, like marrying her son was climbing Everest, and she doubted I had the equipment. My parents sat in the corner, looking uncomfortable. My mother, who worked as a nurse for 30 years picking up extra shifts so my brother and I could have opportunities, whispered in the bathroom, "Sweetheart, you don't have to take this." But I loved Marcus, and he promised his mother would come around. Wedding planning was 6 months of hell. Linda wanted to control everything. She called my garden ceremony choice quaint in that tone, meaning trashy. She tried cutting my college friends from the guest list for her business associates. She suggested maybe my cousin instead of my best friend Jasmine as maid of honor, and when I asked why, she got this pinched look and said Jasmine wouldn't photograph as well with the aesthetic she planned. I realized with horror she was objecting because Jasmine is black. That's when I put my foot down. I told Marcus either we have our wedding or we elope. He backed me up. We had our garden wedding with everyone we loved. Linda wore black and told everyone she was in mourning. Here's what makes this insane. By the time we married, I was already making significantly more than Marcus. My career had exploded. After my master's, I was hired by a top firm, and within 18 months, I was leading projects. I designed a community center that won a National Architecture Award and got featured in Architectural Digest. I was being headhunted by firms in New York and LA offering senior positions with salaries that made my parents cry. Marcus had a comfortable marketing job he enjoyed, but I was out-earning him by 45%. I didn't care because I loved him for who he was, not his paycheck. But Linda had constructed this fantasy where her successful son married a poor, desperate girl who hit the lottery, and she told everyone. At family gatherings, she'd make pointed comments about how grateful I must be for the life Marcus gave me. She told her friends I came from poverty, which wasn't true because my parents were middle class and had worked hard to provide well for us. But to Linda, if you didn't have a trust fund, you might as well live under a bridge. She'd buy me clothes for Christmas, making huge productions about helping me build a proper wardrobe. Never mind I could afford designer clothes myself, but chose to spend money on investing and saving. She acted like a queen bestowing charity on peasants, and it made my blood boil, but I kept swallowing it because Marcus asked me to keep the peace. The worst part was watching how differently she treated Marcus versus me. She'd brag about his accomplishments while standing next to me, never mentioning anything I achieved. When I won the AIA award for my community center project, which came with $50,000 and national recognition, she congratulated Marcus on being supportive of my little hobby projects. Little hobby projects. But sure, Linda, just a cute hobby that won one of the most prestigious awards in architecture. Marcus would try to correct her, but she'd pat his hand like he was a naive child and change the subject. Then came the house 6 months before our 5th anniversary. A historic Victorian in our dream neighborhood came on market. It needed major renovation but had incredible bones. 12-foot ceilings, original hardwood, huge garden backing onto a park. I could see exactly what it could become. The asking price was $750,000, steep but reasonable for that neighborhood. I had been saving aggressively since grad school, living below my means, investing 30% of every paycheck. I had $120,000 in liquid investments. I knew if I put down $65,000 and we got a mortgage, monthly payments would be manageable. I showed Marcus, and his face lit up like mine had. But we hit a problem with the mortgage application. Marcus's debt-to-income ratio was higher than ideal between student loans, his MBA, car payment, and credit card utilization. Nothing irresponsible, but the bank said we could only qualify for $550,000, not enough. I had the down payment money, excellent credit, low debt-to-income ratio because I paid off my loans early and drove a used car. I proposed I put down $65,000 for my savings and be the primary borrower, with my income qualifying us. Marcus would be on the title as co-owner obviously, but for mortgage purposes it would be my loan, my credit, my income. Marcus felt uncomfortable at first, like he wasn't contributing equally. We had long talks, and I explained this was investment in our future together. The house would appreciate after renovation. We were building equity for both of us regardless of whose name was first on paperwork. We agreed to split payments going forward based on what each could afford, roughly proportional to our incomes, which felt fair. When we closed, there was one more complication. Marcus had been an identity theft victim months before, and even though it was resolved, his credit score hadn't recovered. The bank would only approve with me as sole borrower, not even co-borrower. Marcus was on the title showing equal ownership, but the mortgage, the actual loan, was in my name, a loan based solely on my income and credit. The house was legally ours together, but financially I had bought it. That distinction was about to matter more than I imagined. We spent 18 months renovating, and I lived and breathed that project. I designed every detail, met with contractors before work and during lunch and after dinner, managed the budget and timeline. Marcus helped on weekends painting and doing demo work, but his job was demanding and he traveled frequently, so realistically this was my project. I poured everything into making it perfect. I designed a kitchen with custom cabinetry that got featured in Metropolitan Home magazine. I restored original fireplace mantels and the staircase. I refinished the hardwood floors. I designed the master bathroom with incredible custom tile work. I planned the garden with native plants and a beautiful patio. Everyone said it was the most beautiful house they'd seen. Linda came after we'd mostly finished, and I was excited to show her despite everything. She walked through examining everything critically, then turned to Marcus and said, "Marcus, darling, you've done such a wonderful job. Your father and I are so proud." I was standing right there in painting clothes from touch-up work that morning. Marcus immediately corrected her, explaining I had designed everything and managed the entire renovation. She waved it away. "Well, yes, dear, but you paid for it all, didn't you? That's what really matters." He tried explaining the actual financial arrangement, but she wasn't listening. Over the following years, Linda's narrative solidified. She'd bring friends over without asking, give tours of what she called Marcus's beautiful home, describe design choices I made as Marcus's vision. She told one friend Marcus restored the fireplace mantles himself when he'd just held the ladder while I supervised the craftsmen. She redecorated our guest room once while we were on vacation without permission, said she wanted to help since I had so much to learn about interior design. Never mind, I'm a professional architect published in national magazines. Her comments got more pointed. I'd overhear her telling people Marcus married for love, not practicality, with looks making clear she thought I was neither. She told family she worried I'd never keep up with the lifestyle Marcus deserves. She made comments about my family, my education from a state school instead of Ivy League. Everything was a reminder that in her eyes I was lesser, had lucked into a life I didn't deserve. The final straw started 3 weeks before the anniversary party. Linda invited us to what she said was small family dinner at the country club, just immediate family. We showed up casually dressed to find 30 people, including relatives I'd never met, and surprise, Victoria, the ex, and her parents. Linda had orchestrated an ambush. Throughout dinner, she kept steering conversation to compare Victoria's life to mine. Victoria married a surgeon and didn't work, which Linda presented as ideal. Victoria's husband bought their house outright as a wedding gift. Victoria spent her days volunteering for the right charities and planning dinner parties. It's so wonderful when a woman can dedicate herself fully to supporting her husband's career and maintaining a proper home, Linda said pointedly, looking directly at me. Some of us believe that's what marriage should look like. I smiled tightly and said I believed marriage should look however makes the couple happy, that I was grateful Marcus supported my career as I supported his. Linda actually laughed. Ambitions, yes, that's certainly one word for it. Victoria's mother joined in about how Victoria had been so selfless giving up her career aspirations, though what those were remained mysterious since Victoria barely graduated college, to focus on family. But I suppose not everyone has that luxury. Some people need 2 incomes to maintain their lifestyle. The implication was brutal. I needed to work because Marcus couldn't afford me. I was less than because I contributed financially instead of being provided for. Marcus grabbed my hand, and we left early. He was furious, shaking with rage driving home. He called his mother that night, saying the dinner was inappropriate and cruel. She owed me an apology. Linda cried, played victim, said she had no idea what he meant, just tried to have a nice dinner. She said I was too sensitive. Maybe if I wasn't so defensive people would warm to me. Maybe if I spent less time on career and more on being a wife these comparisons wouldn't be so unflattering. Marcus hung up on her. But Linda wasn't done. She decided our 5-year anniversary would be perfect to bring the family together and heal the rift I had caused. She insisted on throwing us a party at our house, said it would be her gift. She'd handle everything. Marcus was skeptical, but I was exhausted from fighting. I thought maybe this was an olive branch. I agreed with conditions. I approved guest list and menu. She agreed sweetly, said of course, this is your celebration. The party day should have been my first clue. Caterers I'd never approved showed up with a menu I'd never seen. Linda arrived early with a decorator who started rearranging our furniture without asking. When I questioned this, Linda said she wanted to showcase the house properly, and I shouldn't be rude. She'd invited 20 people I didn't know, more country club friends. By the time guests arrived, I was exhausted and angry. That's when I overheard it. I was in the kitchen refilling a platter when 3 of Linda's friends came in talking, not realizing I was around the corner. I still can't believe Marcus married her, one said. Linda said she literally worked in a coffee shop when they met. Another laughed. Well, you can't blame the girl for shooting her shot. If I could have locked down a man with Marcus's prospects, I would have too. The third said, Linda told me the girl comes from absolutely nothing. No family money, no connections, nothing. She saw a meal ticket and grabbed on with both hands. At least she had the sense to be pretty enough to seal the deal. I stood frozen, holding bruschetta, listening to strangers tear apart my character and marriage. They discussed how lucky I was, how I must feel like I won the lottery, how Linda was a saint for accepting me despite my obvious gold digging. One actually said, "Can you imagine being that shameless? Moving into a house your husband bought, living a life you could never afford, and having the audacity to act like you earned any of it." Something in me snapped. Not explosively, but cold, like ice cracking. I set down the platter, walked to my office, pulled out the folder with all our important documents: house deed, mortgage papers, employment contract, award certificates, everything proving who I was and what I'd accomplished. Then I walked back to the living room where Linda was giving her toast, and I waited. Linda's voice rang out, making sure everyone heard. "I want to make a toast to my son Marcus, who has such a generous heart that he took in a girl from nothing and gave her everything she could have ever dreamed of. This beautiful home, this wonderful life, everything. Marcus has always been so kind to people who are less fortunate." The room went silent except for awkward laughs. 40 pairs of eyes turned to look at me holding a tray, pity and judgment in their faces. I set the tray down slowly, glass onward echoing in silence. Linda's smile faltered seeing my face. I smiled coldly. "That's such a sweet sentiment, Linda. It's interesting, though, because you talk a lot about what Marcus has given me. You tell everyone I married for money, that I'm living a life I could never afford, that your son saved me. You've told this story for 5 years. So I thought maybe on our anniversary, in front of all these people you invited to our home, we should set the record straight." I opened the folder and pulled out the deed. "This is the deed to this house. The house you've been touring all day, telling everyone Marcus bought, calling Marcus's home. It's in my name, Linda, solely my name as primary borrower. Marcus is on the title, but the mortgage, the actual loan owning this property, that's in my name alone, qualified on my income alone because I was the only one who could carry it financially." The room was silent. Linda's face went pale then red. "That's not. Marcus paid for this house," she stammered. I shook my head.
No, Linda.
"I provided the down payment. $65,000 from my own savings built over years of working 2 jobs. I qualified for the mortgage on my income. I make the majority of monthly payments because I earn more than Marcus and have since before we married." I pulled out another document. "This is my offer letter. I'm a senior architect leading major projects. My annual salary before bonuses is substantial, substantially more than your son makes. I'm not saying that to diminish Marcus because I love him and I'm proud of him, but you measure people's worth by income, so by your metrics, I'm the successful one." I held it up long enough for nearby people to see, watching their faces change. "I designed every inch of this house you love showing off. I project managed the renovation, selected every material, coordinated every contractor. The kitchen you complimented that you told your friends Marcus designed? I created that, and it was featured in Metropolitan Home magazine. The garden you photographed for Instagram? I planned and planted every element. The fireplace mantles you said Marcus restored? I hired and supervised the craftsmen while Marcus was traveling. This isn't Marcus's house he generously shares with me. This is our house that I largely paid for and entirely designed." I pulled out more papers. "Here's the award I won for the community center project you called my cute little hobby. It's the American Institute of Architects National Honor Award, one of the most prestigious in architecture, with a $50,000 prize. Here's Architectural Digest featuring my work. Here's a contract for a project starting next month worth more in fees than Marcus makes in 2 years. You've spent 5 years telling everyone I'm a gold digger who married for money." Linda tried interrupting, but I kept going. "You told your friends I come from nothing, from poverty. My father is a high school principal who dedicated 30 years to education, helping hundreds of kids get into college. My mother is a nurse who worked night shifts for years so my brother and I could go to good schools. They paid for our education, owned their home outright, raised 2 successful children with graduate degrees through hard work and integrity that apparently means nothing because they don't have a country club membership." One of Linda's friends spoke up. "Well, there's no need to be so crass about money. It's unseemly for a woman to brag about earnings." I turned slowly, smiling with teeth. "You're right, it is unseemly, which is why I never did until tonight when I had to listen to you people discuss how I'm a gold digger who trapped a man. Linda has no problem talking about money when she thinks it's her son's, but suddenly it's inappropriate when it turns out the money is mine. Marcus stepped forward, arm around my waist, voice firm. Mom, you need to stop. Everything she's saying is true. I've tried correcting you privately hundreds of times and you ignore me because the truth doesn't fit your narrative. You've been awful to my wife, lied about her, made her feel unwelcome since the day you met her, and I've failed her by not putting a stop to it more forcefully. But it ends tonight. Linda's eyes filled with tears. I've always tried to welcome her. I threw her an engagement party, helped with the wedding, opened my home, and this is how she repays me? By humiliating me in front of my friends. Marcus didn't back down. Mom, you didn't help with the wedding, you tried to control it and made racist comments. You didn't welcome her, you've spent years making her feel she doesn't belong. You threw this party, without consulting us, invited your friends to our home, then gave a speech designed to humiliate her. This isn't her being cruel. This is her defending herself after I failed to protect her. The party disintegrated within minutes. Linda left sobbing with Marcus's father trailing behind, shooting apologetic looks. Most of her friends left quickly, some looking embarrassed, others shooting me dirty looks. A few stayed, mostly Marcus's sister Rachel and our actual friends, helping clean up. Rachel hugged me tight. It's about fucking time someone said that. She's been insufferable for years, and none of us understood why you put up with it. Her husband agreed the family had been uncomfortable, but nobody knew how to address it without causing a rift. Marcus's cousin David said he'd tried defending me once and Linda froze him out for 6 months, so he'd stayed silent, and he apologized. The next morning I woke to 17 missed calls and a long 3 a.m. email from Linda copied to Marcus's entire family, clearly expecting everyone to take her side. She wrote about how hurt and shocked she was, how I'd ruined a beautiful celebration, how she'd always tried her best and I threw it back in her face. She said she didn't know if she could forgive this disrespect. What Linda didn't anticipate was how family actually responded. Instead of rallying to support her, most reached out privately supporting me, saying Linda had been out of line for years. Rachel sent a reply all saying she was proud of me for standing up for myself. Marcus's cousin Sarah wrote she'd witnessed Linda's treatment at multiple events and was appalled, but didn't know how to intervene. Even Marcus's father called separately apologizing for not stepping in sooner. He said he'd always known Linda was being unfair but took the path of least resistance by staying silent, and he recognized his silence had enabled her. He said he was proud of the life we'd built, could see how hard I worked, and how much I loved Marcus. The family group chat Marcus showed me was on fire for days. People argued, took sides, shared stories of times Linda had been judgmental or cruel. Some thought I went too far, that public humiliation is never acceptable. But more than expected said Linda had been building to this for years and needed to hear hard truths even if delivery was harsh. Linda dug in hard, refused to apologize, insisted she'd done nothing but try to be kind. She told anyone listening I'd attacked her unprovoked, that she'd been nothing but welcoming. She painted herself as victim of a cruel, ungrateful daughter-in-law. Some of her friends started distancing themselves because even they could see how unreasonable she was being. She lost friendships over it, women who told her privately maybe she needed self-reflection, and when she refused, they stopped taking her calls. For months, Linda refused speaking to us, wouldn't return calls or messages. She skipped Marcus's birthday, didn't acknowledge our anniversary. Marcus was hurt by the estrangement, but also told me he hadn't realized how much stress his mother's criticism had been causing until it stopped. Our home felt lighter. We could just be ourselves without constant pressure of Linda's judgment. Around month 8, Marcus's father called saying Linda wanted to meet, just us two, to talk. She wasn't ready to apologize but wanted conversation. I was skeptical, but Marcus asked me to hear her out. So I met her at a neutral restaurant, guard completely up. Linda looked smaller, less imposing. We ordered salads neither ate much of, made awkward small talk for 20 minutes before she got to the point. I may have been unfair to you, she said, closest thing to admission I'd get. I had expectations for Marcus's life that didn't include someone like you, and I couldn't let go of that. Someone like me, still that subtle dig. But then she surprised me. My husband pointed out I was projecting my own insecurities onto your relationship. I married young, never had a career, built my entire identity around being Mrs. Grant and Marcus's mother. Watching you have everything, the career, the independence, the recognition, while also having my son, it threatened something fundamental in me I didn't want to examine. This admission that her treatment had never been about me but about her own fears and regrets. It wasn't full apology, wasn't acknowledgement of all specific harm, but was more honesty than I'd ever gotten. I told her I appreciated her willingness to look at her motivations, but going forward, if she wanted in our lives, things had to change fundamentally. I laid out boundaries clearly. No more comments about my background, family, or education. No more undermining me to extended family or friends. No more surprise visits or redecorating without permission. No more comparing me to Victoria. No more giving tours like the house belongs solely to Marcus. If she could agree and actually stick to it, we could try rebuilding some relationship. If not, I was done. She agreed, and I could tell it cost her to accept she'd have to change to maintain access to her son's life. Over the following year, Linda made genuine effort, though not perfect. She still made occasional comments revealing underlying prejudices, still sometimes slipped into old patterns. But she caught herself more often, apologized when called out, seemed genuinely trying to see me as I actually was. She stopped giving house tours entirely. She started asking about my work with genuine curiosity, actually listening instead of dismissing. When I won another award a year after our confrontation, she posted about it on Facebook with real pride, calling me her talented daughter-in-law, the architect. It was progress, slow and imperfect, but real. The real turning point came 18 months after the party, when we found out I was pregnant. We'd been trying for months, worried it might not happen easily, and when the test came back positive, we both cried with joy and terror. We waited past first trimester to tell family, and when we told Linda, I saw something shift in her entire face. She started crying immediately, happy tears, hugging me tightly in a way she never had. I'm going to have a grandchild. My first grandchild. Then she pulled back and looked at me directly, really looked maybe for the first time in 6 years. I'm so sorry I wasted so much time being awful to their mother. I want to do better. I want to be better, because this baby deserves a grandmother who treats their mother with respect and love. And she has done better, mostly. She's not perfect, probably never will be, because people don't fundamentally change, especially in their 60s. She still has moments where old attitudes peek through, where she makes comments revealing she thinks her way of being a woman is somehow superior. But she tries genuinely now, catches herself, apologizes when crossing lines. She babysits our daughter Emma now, comes over weekly to spend time with her granddaughter, tells Emma stories about both her daddy and mama and what they've accomplished. She brags to friends about her architect daughter-in-law, though sometimes still adds how I also somehow managed to keep a beautiful home and be a good mother. She bought Emma a toy tool set and kitchen, tells her she can be anything she wants, and I think having a granddaughter has made her reconsider rigid ideas about what women should do. Looking back 3 years later, I don't regret that anniversary party showdown, even though it was painful and messy. I spent too many years swallowing anger, trying to be the bigger person, hoping patience and kindness would win Linda over. But some people don't respond to kindness because they view it as weakness. Some people only respect you when you show them forcefully you won't be pushed around anymore. That night holding the deed and 5 years of documentation, I finally showed Linda and everyone exactly who I was and what I'd accomplished. Not because I needed their validation, but because I needed them to stop lying about me. The truth is, I didn't marry for money. I married for love and brought plenty of my own money. I didn't need Marcus to rescue me. We rescued each other from loneliness and built a life as equal partners. The house, the career, the success, those are mine. The marriage, the partnership, the love, those are ours. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. If you've ever dealt with a family member who refused to see you for who you really are, who created a narrative about you that had nothing to do with reality, you know how exhausting and painful it can be. You know that moment when you finally snap and defend yourself even knowing it will cause drama. Was I petty for bringing out those documents in front of 40 people? Maybe. Could I have handled it more privately? Probably. But I'd tried private approaches for 5 years. I'd tried gentle corrections and patient explanations and asking Marcus to intervene. None of it worked because Linda didn't want truth. She wanted her narrative to feel superior. Sometimes you have to make a scene to make a point. Sometimes you have to be willing to burn bridges and cause discomfort to stop people from walking all over you. The biggest lesson is you cannot make someone respect you if they're fundamentally determined not to. Linda's dislike was never based on anything rational. She disliked me because I didn't fit her predetermined mold, because my success threatened her worldview, because accepting me would have required her to question beliefs she'd held her entire life. So to anyone dealing with an impossible mother-in-law or judgmental family member who's decided you're not good enough based on their own biases, here's my advice. You don't have to take it. You don't have to smile and nod while someone diminishes your accomplishments. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Stand up for yourself, set boundaries, and if that person can't respect those boundaries, they don't get unlimited access to you and your life. Your worth is not determined by what someone else thinks of you, especially someone who's never bothered to actually know you. Build your life according to your own values, pursue your goals with everything you have, and surround yourself with people who celebrate your success instead of resenting it. And if you happen to have receipts when someone tries to call you a gold digger, don't be afraid to pull them out. I hope this story resonated with some of you. If it did, I'd absolutely love it if you could share it with someone who might need to hear it. Hit that like button if you believe in standing up for yourself even when it's hard, even when it makes waves. Subscribe to this channel for more real, honest stories about navigating difficult relationships and family dynamics. Sometimes we all need to know we're not alone in dealing with this stuff, and your support means everything. Drop a comment and let me know if you've ever had to put someone in their place like this. I genuinely love to hear your stories too. Remember, you are worth so much more than someone else's narrow-minded opinion of you. Never, ever forget that.